Okay, so I figured out what I'm going to do today. No, no cleanup today. Um, I want to button up these rear axles. I haven't done the brakes yet for them, nor have I painted the backing plates for them. And there was a reason for that, and that was that I was going to do the bearings and the seals for them. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take the axles out and dismantle the hubs and pull the bearings and seals and take them down to Napa tomorrow and try and get them for the weekend. And hopefully this weekend I can put it all back together, paint the backing plates, and then the rear axles are ready to go as well. You know, the front is already done. I might spend some time this weekend as well. There's the one hub, I believe it's this one, that doesn't have the engagement lockout on the axle right now, so I'll have to deal with that as well. Anyways, today's work: pulling bearings and seals. Okay, so I'm starting with the driver's side. Actually, I won't pull the passenger side until I have the parts I need, but I'm starting with the driver's side because it just had a little bit more clearance on this side, whereas that side's a little tight. Anyways, this is a fully floating rear axle, and what that means is that the actual drive axle, which is this part right here, doesn't actually support the weight of the vehicle. The weight of the vehicle is supported by the bearings and the hub and the underlying stub part of the axle housing. So what that means is that theoretically I am supposed to be able to just undo all these bolts, and I can pull this axle directly without having to have to open up the axle and pull C-clips like it would be in a normal axle. So I'm going to try that, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, as we can see, it was exactly as described. I undid the 8 bolts holding the axle shaft in, and it slid right out. Just one point, don't forget to drain your rear axle fluid, or you're going to make a mess. Luckily, I think that the diff fluid is a little bit lower than what it should be, because, yeah, you know what, that's probably about exactly where it would be. So I'm just lucky that I've probably got it on, a bit on a slant here, that I'm not losing it all. Anyways, I'll pull this axle out and I'll let you guys have a quick look at it. Okay, there you go, that's the axle. Nothing special about it. No sealing surfaces. Oh, that's a little gungy. There must have been some crud in the axle housing. That's maybe not a good sign. Anyways, yeah, the only sealing surface was the actual axle to hub interface, and there's a metal gasket there. I expect I will want to change the fluid in this thing. I'm not too impressed by that. I wasn't expecting to see any grunge in there. Unless this is supposed to be a limited slip. And if gunge got in there, it means that it either got in through the vent, or it got in through some leaking seal, or the clutch packs have disintegrated inside there, or the clutches. So I will be definitely taking apart this rear axle. I had intended to before, but I will definitely have to make a special note of that, because this may not be safe to drive right now. Okay, I thought I'd quickly illustrate what's meant by a fully floating rear axle. Obviously the axle shaft is out and sitting over there, but the hub is still retained securely to the regular part of the axle and freely rotates. So that's basically what's meant by fully floating. Now, I suppose if you had some kind of a problem where your rear axle locked up on you, you could pull the axles and crawl home on your front. But I don't know how long these bearings would last without any lubricant. Right now, I am just trying to figure out how I'm going to get this lock nut off of here, because I don't have a single socket that's big enough, and I was hoping that my front wheel drive socket set had something that might work, but none of them are big enough either. So I will be scratching my head for a little bit here. Okay, so I got the lock nut off, and that was only just by luck. Somebody else had put some marks into it, and I just used a pin punch to, or taper punch to knock it loose. And but that's not going to work for this one because there aren't any corresponding marks, and I really don't want to put any on it right now. Like I said, I had a look at my front-wheel drive hubs or removal tools, and none of them really will work. This one right here, it comes the closest. It's supposed to be 2 5/8, but that must be the outer diameter. The inner diameter would need to be 2 3/8 to go over the bolt right, and it's just short of that, and I'm not too keen on filing it down yet to make it work. So I either am going to have to leave this till tomorrow until I can get a 2 3/8 inch socket, or until I can fabricate something. Oh, get out of here. Ha! There we go. Of course, you always get proven to be a fool on camera, but it's probably an important thing to remember. It's loose. Finger tight. I can turn it with my fingers. Okay, well, I'll take that off, and then I can get at the bearings and the seals and see how you're supposed to adjust this. Because it would appear that there isn't a hell of a lot of preload on this, which surprises the heck out of me. Anyways. Okay, so you can see right here what I mean by a fully floating axle, and in grim detail here. This is actually the stub, which is an extension of the axle housing here, and that's what the bearing surfaces for the actual hub run on. There's actually 2 bearings, inner and outer, that run along here. Looks like the surfaces look good, no bluing or anything like that, so it doesn't look like it ever overheated. What was interesting was the fact that there isn't a direct oil path for it. It looks like what's meant to happen is that whenever you go around a corner, oil sloshes out and into the actual outer ring of the hub, and splashes around in there and into the bearings. So that's different. Yeah. Anyways, unless there's not a. I thought there might be a drain hole on the bottom of this that would have allowed it to go directly into the inside of the hub, but no, that's the way it appears to work. Okay, so I am going to press the seal and bearing out of the hub. I've got it in the press there. It probably really doesn't need it. I could probably do it with just a hammer and an appropriate punch, but this is a little bit tamer way of doing it. I have a little better control with it this way. You can see the seal up there. Looks to be quite a large assembly there. So we'll do that, and I suppose I got to press out the races as well, so that I can get those replaced. With any luck, I can go in there. I'll just take the bearings as samples, and he can look it up on his book what's supposed to be back here, and we can order that and just confirm that the 2 bearings cross-reference. Okay, got the bearings out. It's probably deceptive, but this is the inner bearing, and it's huge. It's the size of my palm. Looks actually pretty good. There's probably no really good reason to replace it, but I've got it apart anyways. Bearings don't tend to be really astronomically expensive, so I might be at least willing to price it out. Same for the outer bearing as well. It doesn't look too bad. It's a fair bit smaller, as you can see. And there's the seal. No identifying marks on it, which is always fun. The other seals I had like a number, lightly etched into them or pressed into them. This one doesn't have one, so I'll take it with me, and hopefully they've got a number for one, and hopefully the picture looks like what this is. Okay, in typical fashion, I always come back for one last word here. Just took the hub apart, pressed out all of the studs, knocked out the races with a punch, and looks like that's ready to go. I'm always reluctant to blast anything that comes into contact with bearings, but you know, it's not too difficult to get in there with a rag and such and clean it out. So I think I will end up blasting this piece. I suppose I don't know what I'm going to do to the end of the axle. I'm not going to blast the entire axle shaft, but I will most probably wire wheel the axle shaft and figure out what I'm going to do to the end of it. Okay, this is really it for today. I'm going in.